Hello, you are listening to A Woman's Guide, Episode 2. Do you believe there is a higher reason for the abuse you suffered? In retrospect, do your experiences serve as a teaching guide for others? What about your growth, evolution, and expansion of self? Today's episode is Seeing Abuse from a Spiritual Perspective. Stay tuned. This is A Woman's Guide to Reclaiming Wholeness After Sexual Abuse. For all of you listening, welcome to the show. I'm Simone, your confidant and guide. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to clear up and I wanted to say that not all of us believe in spirituality and or religion, and that's okay. I'm just bringing this up to you and telling you what has helped me in my journey, of course, as I continue along with this episode. And I'm passing it along to you if you want it. But I'm only speaking of things that were helpful and beneficial to me on my journey and perhaps maybe for you. Okay, so first of all, let's clear up the difference between religion and spirituality. And of course, this is in my opinion and how I see it, okay? This is not necessarily textbook accurate or whatever else, however else it is. You may read it. Religion, and this is not to offend anyone, because, maybe you're religious, I don't know. You could be religious or you could not be religious or anything in between. But this is not to offend. But I think that religion is more of a man-made thing. It's man-made and it's very dogmatic, which means that it's just full of rules, it's full of principles about what we have to do and what we need to do and what's not right and what's not this and what's not that. Okay, it's full of rules and principles. It's very structured, it's very limited, and so far, I believe that it's, it can be spiritual, but because it has so much rules and so much dogma, it kind of takes out the spiritual side to it. Okay, so there's a lot of things about sinning and judgment and, somehow that, this God that they're worshiping plays favorites and some people are going to hell and some people are going to heaven. I don't know. And like I said, it's not about offending anyone. This is just what I believe. And this is what I've seen and I've experienced. And I'm not a religious person. So I want to clear that up for religion. Spirituality, within my definition, in my understanding, is that there's a higher power, there's a higher mind, there's a higher intelligence that governs the universe, that governs our life, but however, this is how it differentiates between religion. There's no really hang-ups on the name of this higher power, of this source. There's no hang-ups on the correct ways of doing things, of quote-unquote worshiping, and rituals and doctrines, and it's not, there's no hang-ups about it. It's just about knowing that there's something higher, there's something more, there's something bigger. We're all connected to it. It's this thread that connects all of us to this higher power, okay? It's just knowing that we are all connected and there's something bigger and there's something vast, and everyone can personally define it for themselves. Everyone can define it for themselves and express it as their part of spirituality. Okay, so that is the difference there. I'm more of a spiritual person because I know that there's something higher. I know there's something bigger. I know there's a higher reason for everything. I know there's a higher reason for my life. But I don't have hang-ups about what I call this spiritual energy or this, force or this being. I don't have names. I mean, it's not important to me. It's not very important to me. That's hence the reason why I say spirituality, because with religion, there's more about dogma, or there's more about religious denominations and what are you? Are you a Catholic? Are you Christian? Are you a Muslim? Are you a, are you Jewish? Are you whatever? And it's like, it's, to me, it's just about putting everybody in these boxes. And I'm not someone to be put in a box, because I can't necessarily accurately, neatly place it into a box where I feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable doing that, because I respect everyone's religion. I respect everyone's way of doing things and way of believing, but I also want to be respected too for what I believe. So I just find that, with spirituality, it's something that it suits me better, and it makes me feel freer, because at the end of the day, your spirituality is yours. It's what you make it. And I believe everybody does have a spirituality. It's whether you're aware of it or not, whether you're in tune or not. But everybody has a spirituality, because we're all connected to each other. We're all connected to each other. There's not, oh, I'm here and you're here. That's an illusion. Because we're in different bodies, it doesn't mean that we're not connected to each other. Just like we are connected to the earth, and we're connected to animals and every living creature here. We're all connected. But anyway, that's just me personally. If, it's okay if we have different ideas about it, but I'm just explaining what helped me for myself and my journey. So, coincidentally enough, I have a story that fits right into this, because speaking about seeing abuse from a spiritual perspective, like, it literally fits right into what I'm saying here and what I'm explaining about spirituality, and also with abuse, which I'm going to be leading into, is that I had this experience, or this encounter with a gentleman, and we met in the circumstance where I made an ad because I wanted to do a YouTube channel about spirituality, or not spirituality, but self-help. And might I mention, I actually put that in the ad. I put that in the ad, saying that I wanted to do something that was on a personal self-help level, but also with little aspects of spirituality in it. But it's mainly just to help people and help them on their journey and their growth. So I met him, and he called me, and we started talking, and I started explaining what I'm doing and what I wanted to do, and how I was, because I was looking for a producer, or not a producer, but I was looking for someone who knew a lot about cameras and knew a lot about, I guess, editing and all the technical software and stuff like that. That I just needed help with that stuff. I'm not very savvy with that stuff, but anyway, it seemed like we hit it off as we were talking with each other, and we were sharing ideas. And he did at one point ask me if I was spiritual or religious, and I said no, because from the definition I gave you, I'm not religious. I'm not religious. I don't see myself as a religious person. But as we continued our conversation, and then we actually got really deep into understanding each other's lives, and it was just strange because we really had a connection. And he was asking me about my life, and somehow we got into talking about abuse, and I told him about the abuse that I experienced when I was younger. And then, he was really fascinated with that. He was really fascinated and horrified at the same time that I went through something like that. And he was just wondering, okay, well, because he wanted the ideas for this, this partnership for us working on this YouTube project together. He wanted the ideas for it. And he wanted someone to have stories, a good story about helping other people. So it seemed like we really were a good fit. But then, I explained to him, yeah, well, I went through that type of abuse, and he was wondering how did I make it through, and I told him that, well, there must have been some kind of higher power that kept me together, because I don't know how I survived that. I really don't know how I got through it. I don't really know how I got through it, but I got through it. Okay, and he didn't really say much. He didn't really say much. Now, we said, okay, we're going to continue to work together. We're going to continue to work together and have a partnership. And then fast forward a few days, and we were, you know, I think we texted, not texted, we emailed back and forth a couple times about what we're going to do. And then I sent him something. I sent him something that I found very interesting, about a spiritual teacher that I really liked. I think I mentioned that in my first video, Ayanla, and said that, you know, a lot of people say that I remind her of them, or I remind them of her. Okay, so, and then he for some reason got really ballistic, and I mean, this is over this was over the email. This was over email. This was not over the phone, but I could tell he was really upset. And he was thinking, oh, this lady's a fruitcake, and she doesn't know what she's talking about, and religion is crap, and da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, please don't tell me you believe in this God. I thought you told me you did not believe in a God, or you were not religious. I said, well, I said I was not religious. I did not say I didn't believe in a God. I just said I wasn't religious. But I guess he took it as me just not believing in anything higher because I said I wasn't religious. I guess some people do put it together, both together. Okay, so I told him, I said, well, yes, I do believe in a higher power. And, you know, he was just going on about saying, well, you know, people like that are crazy. And, you know, I wanted practical, down to earth methods of how to overcome abuse, and I just wanted to know, and you know, all this God stuff is crazy, and and this is a very important point, by the way. He said, how could you have a God, how can you know of a God that you claim and go through something as horrible as abuse, and this God did not stop you from going through it, and then you later praise this God, or you later thank this God for giving you the healing to go through that? He said that's very twisted thinking. Very twisted thinking. And the funny thing is, I actually understand why he would say that. I understand why he would say something like that. Because I did question why, when I was younger, I guess I had a very strong awareness that there was something higher than me, but there's this contradiction because I was going through abuse. I knew that what I was going through was wrong, and I knew that I hated it, and I knew it was uncomfortable, and I knew I felt ashamed. I knew that something was wrong about it. So I grew to have this resentment toward God about what I went through. Okay, so that was a really big conflict that I experienced as a child, and I totally understood what he was saying about that. But then, obviously, before that incident, I had a epiphany, or some kind of realization of why I went through it. Many realizations, actually. It just made sense. It made sense to me. It just totally, totally made sense. And it was on a very high level that I can't really explain. It was more than what my mind could comprehend. But spiritually, I understood. I understood. Okay? And then it sunk in later on, more and more as I went along. It sunk in more why I went through it. So it didn't seem like just this really awful, terrible thing that just did not fit in. It was something that was a part of something bigger. But anyway, I'll get more into that, but I just wanted to bring that out because I know that there is a lot of conflict with that understanding, where how could you be so spiritual and yet you've gone through something so horrible? Like, what happened to that God that you have? How come that God didn't save you from whatever you went through? So I understand. It's a little bit strange, but you have to get to a certain level of understanding to know why. You know, you have to get to a certain level, but I'm going to get to that. I'm just getting to that. Sorry. Okay, so the reason why I brought this topic up about spirituality is because to be spiritually aware on some level, to be spiritually aware, to have spiritual awareness on some level, is to know that there is a higher reason and a divine reason for everything in your life. Okay? So let me point this out to you. Let me put it to you in this way. If you believe, and you may not consider yourself to be spiritual or religious, okay? If you believe that everything does happen for a reason, that there's a purpose to everything in everything in life, if you believe that everything does happen for a reason, then you are spiritual. You may not know that. And what I just mean by spiritual is that the fact, just like I said, it's like you know that everything happens for a reason. There's a higher reason to it. So if you believe everything happens for a reason, if you are spiritual, you do understand that something is governing our life. There's something at play here. Because why else would you say that if you thought that everything was just chance, luck, and coincidence? If you thought everything was chance, luck, and coincidence, you don't believe everything happens for a reason, because that's just chance. Things happen the way they happen, the chips fall where they may, nothing is in order. But if you believe that something happens for a reason, then what is the reason that it happened? If you believe that something happened for a reason, there's got to be a reason. If you don't believe there's a reason, then why say that everything happens for a reason? There's got to be something about that. You got to dig deeper and try to figure out why you would say that. Why would you say that something happens for a reason? Because a reason is a reason. If it's chance, no reason. If it's a coincidence, no reason. If it's luck, no reason. No reason. There's no reasoning in those things. So I just wanted to point that out there. There's got to be a reason for whatever you're believing the reason is for. There's got to be a reason for... There's got to be a reason. There just has to be a reason. The reason is, what is it? What is it? What is the reason for that happening? What is the reason? Okay, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I don't want to drill it too hard into your mind there, but I just wanted to point that out there. And I believe, going a little further, that for me, that the reasons that we are here, and this always, comes from the spiritual point too, that we're here for a reason. We are here for a reason. We didn't just come out of nowhere. We just happen to be here. We happen to be born, and we happen to be in this skin, and we happen to look the way we do, and we happen to be, I believe that we're here. We came here to learn something. We came here to experience life, to have experiences, hard lessons of life, for growth and understanding, for expansion of self. Okay? When we learn, we're learning. The times that we really learn is we're learning when things are hard and difficult and challenging and new. You can't learn anything when you're not experiencing anything new or different or difficult or challenging, because you see, that's what keeps us at attention, is when we have difficulties and when we have problems and we have trouble, when we have pain. That's when we pay attention. That's when we can actually learn something. Not to say that you can't learn something when you're happy, but you learn when you are going through hard stuff and you're going through hard lessons. You can't really learn. Okay, sorry. You cannot grow. You can't grow. This is what it is. Growth. And growth comes from learning, right? But you cannot grow when things are easy. You just cannot grow when things are easy. I find, and if you look back on your life too, I find that when things are just the hardest and the most difficult and the most challenging, I grew the most. And in fact, that's what's happening to me right now. I'm being stretched beyond what I think I can do. I mean, I would have never thought I would do this podcast. I did not think it was in me to do a podcast about sexual abuse. Really? Me? Considering how I defined myself, you see? This is why we have to redefine ourselves, because considering how I define myself, I did not think that it would be possible for me to do this, or even get to this level where I could even think to do something like this, because it was so beyond out of my comfort zone. I didn't think I wanted to do it, or I didn't think I could do it. So what I'm saying is that when things are difficult or hard, and believe me, there was a lot of hardships and there was a lot of stress and worry and, oh gosh, like everything uncomfortable to get me to this point where I've decided to do this, or it's kind of forced me to do this. I've been forced up. I've been forced to this level of what I believed that I could not do. When things are hard, that's when we grow the most. When you're uncomfortable, when you're the most uncomfortable, that's when you grow. Okay, so I just wanted to say that about, about that. So also another thing is that when you learn of the contrast, when you're learning of the contrast, this is another reason why, possibly because you were, why you went through what you went through, okay? This is some of the general reasons. I'm going to give you specific things that I or specific things that I discovered about myself and the advantages and benefits of what I experienced. Okay, but first of all, it's like you learn of the contrast. When you learn of the contrast, it teaches you a lot about who you are. It teaches you a lot about who you are. Contrasts are about, the opposing factors of different things, right? So we learn a lot about ourselves through the contrast. We learn a lot about who we are, what we like, what we don't like, what our nature is. I mean, what's our real nature? That's where the contrast comes in. So what I mean by that is, how can you know what cold is if you do not know what hot is? How can you have an understanding of what cold feels like until you know what hot feels like? If things are always hot all the time, how could you know what cold is? You need the contrast. You need the opposite factor of that thing to know what is the other thing. You cannot know what cold is until you have been hot. If you're always hot, you're not going to know what hot is. Because it just is. It just is. There's nothing that's going to make it hot unless you have cold. It's the same thing with happy and sad. How do you know what happiness is until you've been sad? If you have not been sad, you cannot know what happy is. You cannot know what joy is if you had not been depressed. If you're always happy, there is nothing significant about it. There's nothing significant about it. There's nothing profound about it. There's nothing important about it, because that's what you're always experiencing. Now, if you're sad, if you get sad or you become depressed, that's when the happiness is illuminated, when you become happy. The happiness, you can only experience the happiness after you've been sad. You can only know what happiness is until you've been sad. Same thing with fear and love. How do you know what love is until you know what fear is? Or let's put it in this way, a lot of people know good and evil. How could you know what good is until you know what evil is? How could you know what love feels like until you know what fear feels like? Which is evil, what people consider evil, but I call it fear. How do you know that? Okay? You can't know that. You can't know it until you've gone through the opposite side of it. But I hope you understand what I mean by that. So now I'm going to share a few things that I discovered about myself because of that abuse that I experienced when I was younger. So some of the advantages or the benefits, and I know that sounds really strange because if we think about something really that awful, that god awful, we think, oh boy, well, there's nothing good that comes from that. It's just bad, purely. But, like I said, I did learn, and I realized a lot of things that I wouldn't have learned before. I wouldn't have known before. I guess I wasn't ready. I didn't heal enough to get to that point where I actually understand what good that comes out of it. So anyway, hopefully I can give you an idea of what I mean. So, first of all, the first thing, and this is one thing I want you to pay attention to, is that you realize, or I realized, my strength. I realized my strength. I realized my ability to endure or overcome, move beyond and climb over seemingly impossible obstacles, because you realize your own strength. When you come out of something like that, you realize your own strength, and you cannot understand how strong you are until it's been tested. How are you going to know how strong you are until you've been tested in an area? It's the same like I would link it to, let's say, working out. How the heck are you going to know how much you can lift, or how much you can push, how much weights you can bear until you have those weights on you? How could you know? You can't know. It's only until you've been tested that's when you see how much you can take, or how much you can handle, how much you can endure, how much you can overcome. Okay? Strength is a very important thing here, because you realize how strong you become when you've gone through something that really you felt should have crushed you or should have totally annihilated you, but it didn't, because you're strong. That's what it makes you realize. So I realized how strong I was. I realized my strength. And with that said, going a little further, I feel like I have a lot more personal power because of what I've gone through. And what I mean by that is, after I came out of that, and after I realized I wasn't a victim, you see, you get to a certain point in your mind where you realize you're not a victim. If you endured all of that and you came out on the other side, how could you be a victim? You're not dead, first of all. So you can't be a victim. So I learned, I feel like I have a lot more personal power because I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid of things anymore. I mean, sometimes I do worry or have anxiety because that's really a habit. But I'm not afraid anymore of anything hurting me because I've been through the worst already. I've been through the worst. I've been through hell, as I would call it. I would call it hell. I mean, when you go through something like that, I mean, to me it was hell. To me it was hell. I mean, that was just hell. That's what I could experience. That's what I can label as hell. I would label that hell. Because when you've been through the worst and you come out of it, it changes you. It changes you. It changes you as a person. It changes you. It changes you. It transforms you. You become a better version of yourself, because there's no way you're going to go that low. There's no way you're going to go that low and then come out of it and have it not change you. It's going to change you. It's going to transform you. It's going to turn you into a better version of yourself. It will, if you allow it to. You have to mentally understand that, and you have to mentally claim that for yourself. Because as long as you continue to be a victim, then you will be a victim, right? But I have realized that, oh yes, I have a lot more personal power because of that. Because I'm thinking, if I went through that, please, nothing else can really rock your world, negatively speaking, if you went through that. Nothing. So this is where I guess the term, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's true. It's absolutely true. I totally understand that phrase now. Okay. Oh, this is another point. You appreciate the good. You appreciate the good so much more. Once you come out of the darkness or the depression or the feelings of ugliness that you've had, that you were carrying, of your emotional mental state, whatever it is, you appreciate the good so much more when you come out of that. When life starts to get better, and your happiness grows, your happiness feels so much greater than it did before. Life feels so much more like alive. When you experience love, because I mean, if you go through sexual abuse, that's not love. That's not love. That's fear. That's evil, as some people may connect it to. It is evil or fear. So when you experience something like that on that level, the ultimate disrespect, the ultimate exploitation, the ultimate disregard, the ultimate dishonoring of who you are, when you come out of that and you experience love, like true love, it's so much more sweeter. It's so much sweeter because you know what that ugliness feels like. You know what that ugliness felt like. And so for you to have that love in your life, love, it doesn't matter where the love came from or comes from, it's so much sweeter, and you appreciate it so much more. You appreciate beauty so much more. Because I realize I'm appreciating beauty so much more now that I'm coming out of that, I mean, it's been a while since I've been coming out of that, but now that I'm really starting to really, really let it go, I'm appreciating things so much more in nature, and I'm appreciating the beauty that I see. The greens are green. The greens are so much greener. The blue of the sky is so blue. It's crazy. Just like how some people have on those commercials or whatever they're talking about when they're in love, and things are just so beautiful, and the sky is so blue, and the birds are chirping, and everything is so beautiful and wonderful. That's how it is. Things are a lot more intense for you because you know how intense it was on the other side. So the good on the other side, which is the contrast I'm speaking about, it becomes so much more intense. It becomes so much more intense. Everything becomes brand new. Like you're living for the first time, and you're living for the first time. You're brand new, and everything you're experiencing is just the first time you're ever experiencing it before. But you experienced it before, it's just that you were in a different state. But now that you're better, or as you become better, it's like things become brand new again. It's true. Okay, so another point is, because of that abuse, I have a lot more empathy for people. I have a lot more empathy and compassion for people. Had I not, I don't think I would be nearly as caring or compassionate for for other people. Okay? I don't know, for some reason suffering makes you sweeter, I believe. Of course, if you have your heart is very strong and your head is very strong and you don't turn into an abuser and continue the cycle, I think suffering makes you sweeter. Suffering makes you sweeter. You know, you don't want other people to feel pain in the way that you have. Your love is more pure and your love expands more. But that's only for some people. I don't think everybody's like that, because some people literally turn into the abuser themselves. They turn into the abuser. They do the exact same thing that was done to them. The cycle of abuse. But for those people whose hearts are strong, and who has a strong head, who doesn't have such a weak mind. And I mean that in the best way possible, because I believe that the people who turn into abusers, their minds are just weaker. Their minds are not as strong and I wouldn't say impenetrable, but their minds are not as, I guess, fixed in a certain way. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has a different structure in their mind. Everybody is affected differently, but I believe that the people who just have gone, who turn into abusers, their minds are just not as strong. They have a weaker mind, not as strong mind. And I don't mean that to offend, okay? But it's just, I just don't believe their minds are as strong as the ones who do not continue the cycle of abuse. So anyway, with the experiences of the abuse, I know for a fact that it's made me an example. It's made me an example for other people. People who are going through the same type of abuse, or people who have gone through the same type of abuse. It makes me an example that those who have gone through it and those who have yet to go through their recovery, I become an example that it's possible to heal, and it's possible to be okay, to actually come out of it and be okay and feel good and not have it destroy you. There's a certain strength that comes when you understand that someone has gone through what you've gone through, but they made it, and that they're okay and they're happy and they're living their life. That's what the psychologist that I saw did for me, because she went through abuse. Makes sense. That's why she could sit there and have compassion and have empathy, and she could be effective as a therapist. But she went through abuse, and that's what made me think, oh, well, I guess if she's happy and she's okay now, because she told me that she went through it, but it's just something she looks back on. She says, oh, well, that happened. But, like, you know, because she healed to such a point where it didn't bother her anymore. So it gives you strength to know that someone else has gone through it and they're okay. Okay, so that is an advantage that I feel for myself as well as other people. And also because of what I've gone through, most likely I will help to prevent someone else from going through that too, just by telling my story, just from explaining what happened, possibly preventing a bad circumstance from possibly preventing a bad circumstance of that happening to someone else who's younger and innocent, and possibly bringing awareness to a parent who may suspect that their child might be at risk for that type of thing. Who knows, right? So that's another reason. And then I have another reason that I found my true spiritual self because of it. That's an advantage, for sure. I know for sure that's an advantage, because I found my true spiritual nature. I had no choice but to cling to and believe that there was something higher than me. okay? You learn that, or I've learned that I'm so much more than my body and my mind. I'm so much more than my physical self. Because I believe, had I not had a spirit, because I mean my spirit lives inside of me. If I did not have a spirit that was holding me up and keeping me strong, I mean I would have died. My physical body would have gave out. It wouldn't have been able to endure that. But something held me together. I don't know how I know, I just know. It's just something you know. You know something, and it's just a knowing. It's just like love. You know when someone loves you. You can't explain it. You can't prove it. No one can prove love. It's just something you feel. It's invisible. So it's the same thing with spirituality. I realized that there was something a lot more and deeper to me. A lot more and a lot deeper. And like I said, I had no choice. I had no choice in the matter. I had no choice in the matter because, you know, if I had not clung to anything higher than myself, then I would have self-destructed. I would have killed myself, for sure. Okay? That's when my spiritual awakening happened. It kept me going, you know, having this sparking of understanding that there's something higher and there's something bigger. It sparked me into understanding that there's more to me, there's more to life, there's more to my body and my mind, and it kept me going, and it kept me recovering, and it kept me improving. It kept me on the right track, because I could easily have gone on the wrong track. How many times do you hear about people who are going through sexual abuse that self-destruct, whether quickly, whether instantaneously, whether over time, they self-destruct. They become alcoholics, they become drug addicts. They literally lose their mind. And did you know the insane asylum is filled with people who have gone through sexual abuse? Filled, okay? Jail too. I'm pretty sure at least half people who are in jails have been sexually abused, and they've committed a crime as a result of that. Or dead. And none of that stuff happened to me. None of that stuff happened to me. So what was it that kept me intact? My spirit. Must have been, because I mean, personally, when I think back, it still boggles my mind to this day how I got through that without collapsing or without getting into something that could have killed me, or, you know, self-destructing, because I hated myself. Like I said, I absolutely hated myself. I hated my own guts. So how could I have reached this far where I'm actually learning to love myself? I'm not quite there yet, but I'm a lot better. I love myself a lot more. I take care of myself a lot more. So that's just the way I see it, you know? And I'm going to use this opportunity to make a contrast about what it is that I just said, because, you know, there are some people who are just absolutely lost in life. And this is just an observation. This is an observation. This is not a judgment. This is what I've seen, okay? This is people that I've talked to, okay? And these people are lost in life because they have no awareness of something other than themselves, quote unquote themselves, which is their mind and their body and their tangible self. So they don't think that there's anything more. They don't think that there's anything more than them. And when they don't think that there's anything more than them, they completely self-destruct. And why they completely self-destruct is because there's no anchor that's holding them in place. There's nothing to hold on to. They haven't found anything to hold them into place. There's nothing to look to and believe in. And that's what I think. I think us as human beings, we need something to look to. We need something to believe in, other than our physical selves and our brain and bills and you know, relationships and buying a new car. I think we need more to believe in. We need more to look to. We have to make sense of all this chaos, because there's got to be a reason for all this chaos. We need something more to look to. So when they do not have any sense of awareness of anything that's happening with themselves, okay, they consequently destruct. They consequently destruct because they don't have anything to believe in. They don't have a sense of a higher order or a reason. And then, of course, with that, and I think that's really attached to a feeling of purpose or a reason for their existence. If they don't have a feeling of, or a reason of existence or purpose, why are they gonna believe that they're supposed to be here? Why are they gonna feel like there's a reason for their life? There's no, they don't have any knowledge of something higher, so they're not going to feel like they have a purpose. They're not going to feel like their life has a purpose. That's where the emptiness is going to come from. That's where the insecurity is going to come from, because they don't think that there's anything more to them. In other words, they cannot find their worth. They cannot find their worth until they know that there's a reason for them being here. You understand what I'm saying? Because if we just happen to blow here on Earth, we're just here, I'm just randomly here and you're randomly here, and there's no sense for us being here, there's no reason, there's no purpose for my life and your life, there's no purpose for this life, then of course you're going to self-destruct. We need a purpose. We all need a purpose. And our purpose comes from knowing why we're here. And you cannot know why you're here until you know that there's something else that caused you to be here. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I made this episode, is because I want to say that, I believe that even though whatever you went through was horrible, it was damaging, it hurt your feelings, it broke your heart, it made you feel like nothing, I know that there's a higher reason for it. And of course, only you can define that for yourself. But I know for a fact with myself that it made me who I am. It made me who I am. It made me who I am today. Okay? I know it was an awful thing, it was a horrible thing, but it made me a better person. It made me a more expansive person. It made me a less judgmental person. It made me a more compassionate person. It made me a more empathetic person. It made me want to help other people through their pain and their suffering, which is why I'm doing this podcast. Okay? It made me realize how strong I am. It made me realize that I can handle a lot more than I think. That I can be a lot more than I think. It made me realize that I'm not so easily broken. It made me realize that people cannot destroy me. People cannot destroy me. No one can destroy me. Yes, they may shoot a gun, but they can't shoot me, who I am. Okay? And sexual abuse being the worst kind of abuse there is, I believe. My brother, did not take me away from myself. He didn't take me. Despite his efforts to use and manipulate and be a total monster, let's just put it that way, he did not take me from myself. He didn't take my essence. He didn't take my shine. He didn't take my glow. He didn't take my love and the love that I am to other people. He didn't take that. I still love people. I still love men. I still love my family. I still love things. I love the birds and I love the trees. He couldn't take that away from me. So to me, that's power. That's true power. Because your power is not going to be power unless you are going to experience the opposite of that power. Until that power is until that power is developed by something bad, you're not going to have any power. You're not going to have any true power. You can't have true power if nothing bad happens. You can't be a leader until you've gone through traumas and pains and situations where it seemed impossible. No one's going to think anything amazing of your life or you if everything was just calm and chilled out and there was no problems and nothing happened and nothing challenged you, that's where the true power comes from. Okay? So hopefully that gave you something to think about today. Just to think about. It's okay. Like, I'm not shoving anything down your throat here. I'm just telling you how this helped me. Okay? Hopefully that gave you something to think about, because perhaps if you are questioning your abuse and why you went through what you went through and other experiences that were not so pleasing, then maybe if you're trying to make sense of it, in this phase of your life, at this time in your life, you're still trying to put the puzzle pieces together and try to figure things out and try to figure out why it happened the way it did, when it did, with whom it did, then, sometimes it really just takes a change in perspective. It just takes a change in perspective. It's just to see things differently. And it can make a world of difference. And it can give us a lot more peace and solace. That is it for today. Thanks for listening to A Woman's Guide to Reclaiming Wholeness After Sexual Abuse. If you enjoyed this, you can subscribe to this podcast to hear more episodes. Next week, we will be exploring seeing yourself as a 3-part being. Be sure to tune in. Until next time, take care.